That's true.
I call to order the budget workshop meeting of the City of Aransas Pass City Council, June 17, 2022 at 8:30 a.m. And we'll go to the budget items, which is a presentation of department budget priorities for fiscal year 2022 and 2023.
First of all, I want to make you aware this is being live streamed. So I think this is the first time we've live streamed it. We've been doing this since 2018, I think the year is. I think that's when we started, and always have it on Friday. And Friday morning, it'll last until about noon. And they've been very successful as far as getting input from the council related to budgetary priorities. I want to say a couple of comments before we get started. And ironically, prior to this meeting, it seemed like everybody was talking about some of the things that I'm going to refer to, which is good, I think. It's possible this could be the most important budget for many years, and maybe the most challenging. I'll explain why. On one hand, we have a growing population, as evidenced by the number of utility hookups and the estimated 2022 Census Bureau estimation population. 20, 21, you get different numbers. 22 is giving you an idea that they're catching up finally with our numbers, and it shows significant increase. We will need most of what is being requested by department heads today. More personnel needed, more equipment, more programs, more competitive salaries. On the other hand, in this budget, we have to balance those needs against new and unexpected outside forces facing our state and nation. For example, inflation and fuel prices. Those are the things that everybody came in the room talking about, actually. A lot of the balancing act will have to be guesswork because, especially this year, we don't know what the economic end result, end game, will be. That is why this budget could be our most challenging. This year, more than in previous years, we're dealing with outside forces that are potentially much more dangerous than in previous years. You, as a council, has done much to improve a very weak budget. In fact, it's evolved into a very strong budget. Thank you very much for that. I want to thank everybody up there right now. You all had a role and have a role in it. It is quite possible that because of what is happening nationally, our budget, both the expenditure side and the revenue side, it's quite possible that those are going to be big issues for us in meeting the requirements that go with that. We have to meet the service requirements, salaries, because Associated Press, Aransas Pass has a tradition of having lower salaries than surrounding cities. This year, we have the good fortune of already having funding in place, thanks to the police department, to pay for an objective and professional salary study. At the end of the study, we will know how competitive or non-competitive our salaries are. In this budget, we will have to address any salary adjustments needed to make us competitive. That's no small issue because it could be a significant amount. We have to allow for that, or if you agree, have to allow for that in this budget. At this point, we have no idea how much this will be. During the study, it could be a very chaotic time. Salaries deal with people's livelihood. So a certain amount of confusion during the study period can be expected. I've gone through two of them. I hate going through those things, but they're salary studies. But they're necessary to see how competitive we are. Briefly, in case of the city manager's office in fiscal year 2022-23, I plan to place the planning department under the city manager. In the past, they've kind of been out there alone. They will, and I've talked with them, I've talked with David. David's aware of it also. Right now it's under Public Works. And we'll put them under the city manager. I'm meeting with them on a regular basis now anyway. The citywide maintenance person currently is under the city manager. The city secretary and city manager for the first time are now sharing an assistant. For budgetary reasons, this makes sense. Also, HR will be placed, continue to be under the city manager's office. So now it's time to begin the annual budget strategy session. The whole purpose is for the city council to hear what the department's budgetary priorities are. Then the council will take a few moments to tell us what their priorities are. These council priorities will be taken to the budgetary meetings that will be held throughout this budgetary process. One whole week we set aside, and you've named one person from the council to sit in on that. So that's the whole purpose in this meeting. I want to also point out a couple of things back on the economy just for a second. Inflation is growing rapidly. Gasoline prices are only going higher. We know that. Fuel impacts everything. We're rapidly approaching a late 1970s or early 1980s economy. That could mean a lot less sales tax for us, depending on the housing market. Property taxes also could be impacted. For example, and this is not generally known, the economy is preventing the 200 home development out on 35 from beginning. They're holding back because of the economy. The 500 home proposed project still is moving forward, at least at this moment. With all that said, we have to move forward to address the needs of the various departments who are serving citizens. On the other hand, we have to understand that if the economy continues to go south so that our budget is being significantly impacted, it might be advisable to have a contingency plan. As I was telling somebody earlier today, I was in Arizona during the economic housing collapse of 2008. We lost 25% of our revenue in 1 year's period of time. Huge cities just were dramatically impacted. Arizona and Nevada, hardest hit states. I anticipate we'll very possibly need to do the same thing this budget year, have a contingency plan. That means possibly a freeze on hiring, those types of things. We have to be ready to go with that. Don't anticipate all this is going to disappear real soon. I'm afraid it's going to continue and have to be ready for, and I'm hearing, I don't know what you're hearing, $7 gas prices. I'm hearing the housing market is going to be facing major upheaval also. I'm hearing that inflation, and you're hearing the same thing. You read the same newspapers and listen to the same media. But I'm hearing inflation could go much higher. During the, I'm hearing that right now, inflation rate, although they're saying right at 9%, 8.7, that in reality we're at 22%. And in the Carter years, they were at 20%. I'm afraid, I hope it doesn't happen, that could happen here. My point of bringing that up is that we have to have a contingency plan if that happens. We can't go as if nothing has happened. We have to adjust accordingly. As is often the case, the big issues this year are salaries and staffing because the city is at the highest population ever. And as I indicated, staffing, we want to take some, in the case of salaries and staffing, we want to take some steps in this budget to address those needs, with the idea that we have to be very careful with the current budget and the way the economy is going at this point. So thank you very much. That's all I have. The first one to come up is IT, I believe, and they have a very dramatic proposal. That, as you can see, they have a movie, I believe, not a PowerPoint. Is that correct?
I have a question, Gary. I have a quick question.
Yes.
The salary study. Is the salary study, and I know they take a conglomeration of cities, is it based on just smaller cities or larger
No.
cities are included in there?
No, it's
That have a lot
comparable,
more?
comparable cities.
Okay,
We really
comparable.
can't
Okay,
compare
good.
ourselves to.
Dallas. And that's what
Corpus
I
is
was
considered
afraid
a
of.
small city, but
Okay.
we really can't compare ourselves to Dallas or even Corpus for that matter.
Yeah, exactly.
We have to look at cities throughout the state and in this region that we compare to. That's what it's going to be based on.
That's what I was
Yeah.
hoping. Thank you.
So the first one is IT, and
Put on a shirt. Everybody knows me. My name's Jeff. Good morning. That's my favorite thing to do. You guys all know that. So I'm going to go ahead and start with what he was talking about, just to throw my support behind the salary survey. We need it. I look at it as a risk-based thing. If you lose the people that know how to do everything because they can go down the road, then you've lost the technology, which is in the head, not in the equipment, of how to do things. It's great to have a $200,000 piece of equipment. If somebody doesn't know how to operate it, it's bad news. So we need to try to keep the people we've got, the people who have the knowledge of how to operate things. IT works very cheap. We do a lot with a little. But the problem is you have to know how to run that stuff, and your average Joe IT guy doesn't. I'm not patting us on the back, but I'm patting us on the back. We do a lot with a little, and it's because we come up with solutions. Sometimes we write our own programs to do the things that need to be done here. I don't know of any surrounding IT support people who have the same resumes that we do. And it sounds arrogant, but it just is what it is. A lot of small towns take the smartest librarian computer guy and turn him into the IT guy. We're educated. We've done this. I've got 30 years of experience. David Allfalter has a ton of experience. Seth is moving up real quick. He's receiving a lot of training. The problem here is we get people like Seth trained up. We get people like David trained up. And we do, I'm sorry, but we do compete with Corpus. We do compete with Dallas. Because when someone's looking for a job, they don't look at the size of the city. They look at how much money they're going to make. That's what they're looking at. They're looking at how much can I make. So we do compete with, now I know we can't afford, we don't have the budget of Dallas, of Corpus, of Houston, but I just want that to stick in your head that when someone's looking for a job, they're not comparing small towns. They're not comparing small businesses. They're going for where the money is. And I know we can't compete from a revenue standpoint, but that's something that needs to at least be tickling in the side of your head when we're looking at the results of the salary survey. I think it's a good idea. I think the salary survey, I've been asking for one for 11 years since I've been here, and I am extremely pleased that that Gary and Eric and the rest of the council involved, whoever, has thrown their support behind this. It is a big deal for us. It's very important. It is one of my biggest, in IT you think about things as risk. What are we going to be attacked by? What are our problems going to be? And risk, one of the biggest items on my risk list is losing staff and not being able to replace them if they leave. So that's foremost. It's not on my chart. I wasn't going to talk about salary, but it is an important thing, and I just want to throw my weight behind that. Now, this is something that is near and dear to each one of you, because every time we have a staff change, we have a door code change. Mm-hmm. And I think I stood out there last time and helped almost everybody get in. We do send an email out to everyone letting them know the pin's changed. But if you didn't check your email that morning before you walk in and you try to punch the door and there's cursing or stomping of feet or banging on the door, we have a solution for that. And this is kind of going citywide. I don't know if Public Works is doing it, is talking about it this year, but Fire, PD has already done it. We're wanting to do it here, and that is to add proximity badge door control, access control. What that means to you is that we will be able to determine who can enter the building when they can enter the building, things like that, based on a card that has a little prox thing in it. It's the size of a credit card. It's very plain. It doesn't track you where you're going or anything. There's no demon stuff in it. It is just a very close proximity thing. Some of you have probably used these in the past. The advantage is, on the side of the door, and like in the police department right now, if you want to get in, you walk up and you just tap your badge to it, and the door unlocks, and you open the door and go in. This is what we want to do here. It's the $17,700 is for the 3 doors. This one back here, and the 2 hall doors. Now, later on, we'd like to add some other doors, but because it's fairly expensive, we have overestimated it. It is my belief it will not cost that. We went by the worst case scenario because each door is different and how much work they have to do. So we said, give us a worst case scenario for each door. And so that's what they did. So that's a high number. It's not going to be that bad. Because I am a little bit different, I also have one of these badges in my wallet, just in case I walk out the door without, and I've already lost it. See? That's kind of so I did that on purpose to explain this. So I just keep my badge in my pocket, in my wallet. And it works through the wallet. So you can actually just walk up and put your wallet in there. When I worked at IBM in Austin, I was a software developer. One of the things that we, I found it. One of the things that we did is they mounted the proximity scanner really low, and everybody just kept their thing in their wallet, and it was hilarious to watch everybody walk up and just.
Yeah.
Ours are a little high here; you'd have to jump, but that's what we want. There are so many reasons to do this. You hear more and more often disgruntled people showing up to a place after they've been terminated or whatever and deciding to go nuts. And, either steal something, vandalize, or perform some sort of act of violence. This keeps track of everybody that comes and goes. There's a timestamp. It lets us know when you're there. There's all kinds of rules we can set to determine who can enter when. You guys would all have badges. I have been asking, this probably sounds familiar. We've been asking for this for about 3 years. We've never really been able to financially commit to it because we've had other challenges here. This time, you're going to hear this from several different groups that come up. You're going to hear the same speech. Of course, I gave it better. But that's one of the main things on the list, and we would really, really like to see this funded. I think it's important from a risk standpoint and just from a convenience standpoint. Right now, when we have a staff change, we have to go to every door that they had access to and physically change the PIN code and then let everybody know what that PIN code is. And then there's several days of even me standing at the outside looking at it wondering what I changed it to yesterday. This will eliminate all of that and make it a very instantaneous process. Somebody gets terminated, you just go to the site that you do the management on, and you just disable their badge. So it's very, very useful. Next thing on the list is training and loaner laptop refresh. So we always do a yearly bottom 20% refresh of all the computers so that we never have a computer that's more than 5 years old. It's really hard to support very old equipment, so that's part of our maintenance and operation. One of the things we haven't done in a while is we keep 5 or 6 laptops that are available to be checked out for people who don't have a laptop. Let's say somebody's going on a trip to a training session and they need a laptop. They come to IT checks out a laptop, they take it with them. It's cheaper than buying everyone in the city a laptop. Sometimes we will have training sessions where there'll be 5 or 6 people in the class, and we can set out laptops, have them learn while they are in front of a laptop or in front of a computer doing their thing. This is what we need. Our current laptops, some of them lived through Harvey. That was a couple of years ago. The typical lifespan of a laptop is 3 years. Typical lifespan of a PC is 5 years. So we are past due on replacing those laptops. We don't get fancy stuff. We get good enough for training and for use on trips. So that's something we'd like to do. There is I don't know how many of you guys have been in my office. It's pretty rough. But there is a connecting door historically between the EOC building, the EOC storage room, and my office, and it's in an awkward place, takes up space. I want to wall that off for security reasons so that I can't get in and steal EOC's equipment, because that's a terrible risk of me doing that. And then, but also the other direction. My office is a pretty secure spot. From my office, you can get to almost anything in the city. My door stays locked and closed. If I'm not there, it's locked and closed. I just think it's a good idea to wall that off and remove that other risk. Everything on here is sort of risk-based. The laptop thing is more about trying to facilitate learning and the ability for people to take equipment with them. But everything else I'm worried about is risk-based, and it's trying to plug holes that we have in the city. We're up to date on our Know Before training, which is cybersecurity training. We're up to date on malware bites, which is our virus scanning. We've got those risks covered as good as we can and better than most of the cities around us. But we have other risks, and we're trying to plug those holes, and that's the things we're asking for right now. You guys have any questions, complaints, comments?
The door locks, are they battery operated or are they electrical?
It depends on what type is being put in. Most of them are probably PoE, is that right? I think they're PoE, Power over Ethernet, which is the wire that connects them provides power to the device. We've kind of moved that direction with a lot of our equipment. A good example is the cameras that we have in here are powered over Ethernet, and which means the wire that goes through it actually also provides the power. So you don't have batteries, you don't have any of that stuff. The whole electrical system here is on a generator backup, and we have a small battery backup in between that. So if we lose power, you can still get in and out.
Okay, that's what I was
Next
concerned
question,
about.
right?
Yes, that was my next question.
No, we're not having to kick the door down if the power goes out.
I didn't know if there was a.
As fun as that
Yes.
sounds, I don't think we would have to do that. Yeah. How long does the wire last? Oh, I don't know that we've had one go out. We replaced, well, since I've been here, we haven't experienced that kind of power failure, I don't think. I don't have any recollection of that. Our Jenny kicks in pretty quick. Most of the time you don't even notice. You might see a little of a blip. I think we test it every Thursday morning, Friday morning. Yeah. And so if you don't see the lights kind of dim and blink, it's almost instantaneous. As far as the wiring goes, it's as good as the environment. We, this past week, had to replace that same kind of wire that goes from the aquatic center to the pool pump house. And that goes underground in a conduit, 150 feet. And it has been soaking in water for the past no telling how long since the place is built. And it was still mostly functional. There were only a couple of wires on it that had failed. So they last really pretty good, and even in horrible conditions. Inside this building, I've seen Ethernet installations that were fine 25 years after they were installed. So I mean that's not something, that's not one of my concerns. But, anything else?
That's it.
Thank you guys for listening to me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, and just FYI, all of the rest of the presentations that you see were brought to you by IT, because we're the ones that make it.
Thanks. I think he's too. His horn.
I think so.
I say keep going until he gets here.
Just bypass them.
And if you're late, you don't get nothing.
That's what I would have said.
Right? Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah.
Seems strange that the new guy has the largest list.
I mean, this is my first budget presentation for AP, but this is my 15th budget presentation in my career, so that's probably why.
So it's
I
a
wish I had
piece
the
of cake for
clicker.
you.
Is there a way I can have the clicker? No? Huh? Okay, yeah. I'd like to have.
Control of it, huh?
Yeah. Okay. So, Aransas Pass Public Works, a public service that works. I don't have the gift of gab like Jeff and Eric, so if you guys get bored, let me know. I'll try to spice it up a little bit more, get them to dance a bit. But I did change the order of this one, so I thought it was. I thought I sent you a new version, did I not? Okay. Then I'll go in this order, because I had changed the order up a little bit, but I didn't want you to think that this is not a priority order, it's just an order as I was making it, so, can you go back one more? So, me, myself, and I. So basically, this is inflow and infiltration, so, a lot of our manholes, we have about 250 manholes that are actually brick manholes. So with the ground level, groundwater being where it's at in the rain, we get seepage into our sewer system, so that's why every time when we had the residents complaining about roads in Beasley, every time it rains, they say, hey, water's coming out of our sewage backing up. Well, it's not because people are flushing their toilets more, it's because we're getting rainwater into our wastewater system. So my plan, go to the next one, is a geopolymer relining system. So basically, this piece of equipment and that trailer is what we're requesting. The next one. So this is a demonstration video. This is not, so any video that I show you is not an advertisement of that brand, it's just to show you the concept of how it works, okay? So, can you click the link here? So of course, they're showing a corrugated pipe on this one, but it's actually the same concept. It's only a couple minutes long.
There's supposed to be sound.
Yeah, there's sound to it. So you see how they lower that into the manhole? And it basically sprays this geopolymer, so it's basically giving it a lining, so it has that little nozzle that spins and basically sprays that geopolymer.
Okay.
And it actually will reline your manhole, so even though it's made out of brick, it'll actually make a watertight seal on it.
That sounds good.
And that's basically what the finished product would look like. Of course, this is a horizontal piping, but in the vertical, it basically would just lower down the hoist and pick it up with a tripod.
What's the lifespan of that? About how thick is it, do you know?
How thick is it?
Yeah.
The lining?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the thickness is. All I know is that we're supposed to, it takes a minute for every linear foot, so we have to let it sit there for a minute. So if it's a 10-foot manhole, it's gonna take 10 minutes
Yeah.
to spray it.
Pretty good, pretty good.
So that was the before and then the after.
And you said you wanted to buy this equipment?
Yes, because we would be doing it ourselves.
You don't want to rent the equipment? Is the equipment,
Well,
could you
this is
rent
gonna
it?
be a later on the slides, you can see it's a 3-year plan. So it's gonna
Okay.
take us 3 years to actually do the 250 manholes. So I wouldn't want to rent something for that long, I'd rather
Right.
just purchase it.
Have you used this system or something like this before?
No, I've seen a demo on it, but we have not used it. Okay, that's the end of the video.
Okay.
That's pretty neat.
Mm-hmm.
You won't have to replace any of the manholes or pipes or nothing.
No.
Yeah.
What's the lifespan on that, David? Once you spray it, they got like a average lifespan of when
You know
you
what,
have to do
it wasn't a
again?
brochure, and I remember reading it, I don't remember off the top of my head, but
Okay.
it's basically a permanent fix.
Okay.
Mhm. So basically, the initial cost is $160,000 for that trailer, but then we also had to pay $40,000 of the geopolymer that'll cover 80 manholes. So our plan is to do 80 manholes every year. So basically, year one would be the biggest expense, 180, which is what's requested today. But year two and year three will only be 40,000, which is basically just buying the material. And as you see my presentations, you're gonna see a lot of these are package deals. So I want you to keep in mind, as you say yes or no to certain items, there might be a chance that if you say no to one, we might have to say no to the other two or three because they will be package deals. Okay, you see, this is not, man, I thought I did a different.
This is in a box?
Jeff is in the box.
Because I
Jeff
actually
in a
put
box.
Jack, and I scratched out, put Jeff in the box. So Jeff in the box. And this is for Jeff's crew. So, next. So it's for trench boxes. So right now, we're renting our trench boxes. So a lot of times, we'll dig, we'll excavate, and in the Aransas Pass, I'm still trying to get used to the sand. Where I come from, it's just black dirt. You can dig a perfect hole, and it'll keep your
Stay
structure all the way through. But here, every time you dig, it just caves down. I can't even spray paint the ground. We're trying to do some stations and alignments for the water line we're doing. I'm trying to spray, and the sand's just blowing out of the way. I can't get a paint mark on it. So that's what the trench is for. So that we can minimize how big we make our excavations. Because right now, we have to make them in a V shape. So as we need a 4-foot excavation, we have to make a 10-foot V. So that, and of course, for the safety of employees whenever we go into deeper projects. No, we rent them. We rent them. Yes, correct. Correct. No, we rent them. So whenever we're digging 3-4 feet deep, we do the V-shape thing. So that way, if anything keeps down, it just kind of keeps down in a V shape versus on. But once we start going into the 5-6 foot depth, then we have to rent the trench boxes. And we do have some projects coming in that are going to be that deep.
How often are we renting trench? How often are we renting these boxes?
Whenever we have to go deeper than 5 feet.
And do you have an estimate how many we've had in the last?
No, I don't have that information with me. All I know is that when they told me we did not own any, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna put that in the presentation.
I missed how much they were. How much are they?
The next slide.
Oh,
Did Robstown have these?
No, because we have black dirt. I mean,
Oh.
that's what I was saying.
Okay.
You could dig,
Yeah,
it'll hold its
right,
shape
okay.
until
You fill it
until
back up?
rains. Yeah.
okay.
So we need 2 6x6 trenches, so we can do 6 foot deep, and then some 8-footers, so we can go 8 foot deep. But we need 2, so that way it'll be worth digging. Because if you try to do 6 feet, you can't put a 10-foot pipe in there. You have to get 2, so you can be 12 feet out, so that way your 10-foot pipe could fit in that area. So it's 12,000 for the 2 6-footers, 15,000 for the 2 8-footers. With freight, we're talking about $31,000.
Wow, that freight is high. Are they coming from Russia?
I mean, they're pretty big. I mean, you gotta remember it's
Yeah.
this tall, this long, times 4.
Where are they coming from?
It's coming from Corpus.
I actually,
From Corpus, yeah.
No, so I don't have a brand or anything like that, because with a price like that, I cannot get an official quote
Sure.
or bid. So it's, right now, they're budgetary numbers, so there's no brand, no where we're going. Of course, wherever we do get the quotes, we're gonna go follow the procurement process and try to get the lowest bid, and try to keep it as close as we can so that we can save on the freight. But right now, like Jeff said before, this is the worst case scenario.
Do you know what they charge to rent them right now? A piece?
No, I don't. Yeah.
That's what I asked.
Let me stay on that rental issue just for a
Wow.
second. So what if we have an emergency? Do we have emergency breaks like this? And is it possible that they may be out of those, they may not be able to get them? That's a question. Does that happen where it may be difficult to get one, and consequently we are delayed as far as addressing that emergency water break, whatever it is?
Definitely, it is difficult to rent them basically on a dime, but the thing is that when it's an emergency, then we have to sacrifice by digging a bigger hole that we need just so we can keep everybody safe. So if we need to go 5 feet deep, then yes, we will probably dig a hole as big as this area right here to make sure everybody's safe. But of course, it's unnecessary, but as an emergency situation, we would have to do that to address it. but we trench boxes, then at least we know we have them in stock. We just have to put them in the trailer, take them to the site and install them. So yes, just, we will not leave any emergency situation undealt with, but it will cost quite a bit, especially if it's in a road, then we're gonna have to dig a lot wider, and it's just more patchy, more opportunity for failure in the road as well.
What about just if you just order the 6 foot by 8 foot, order 2 of those, but you need 6 by 6 and 6 by 8s?
Yeah, that's what Jeff was getting with me, because we do have water department and have wastewater department. So it's, a lot of times we have to consider cross-contamination, so more likely we're gonna have one set for water, one set for wastewater. Because,
Okay.
yeah, when you start using two, as a matter of fact, that's a reason for another excavator, because we're not supposed to use the same excavator for both water and wastewater. Yeah. Yes, correct, Jeff Burkett.
Not Jeff over here.
No, yes. Okay. Bobcat in water. So you can go next one. I'm not talking about that Bobcat in water.
Oh, but it's so cute.
And I'm not talking about that Bobcat in water. Okay, so what it is, I'm talking about a Bobcat for the water department, which is a long reach. So if you go to the next slide, we actually own a Bobcat already, so we already have an excavator, but like I said before, we're using it for both water and wastewater. Okay, so the next slide will show the financing for the excavator. So it's $82,000 for a 60-month term, 2.9% interest, assuming it's 2.9. The payments would be about less than $1,500 a month, which will come out to about $18,000 a year.
Okay, you made a point that you're not able, you shouldn't be using the same one for both.
Correct.
The reason for that?
Cross-contamination.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just my question. Okay.
Yeah, just an example like that, the presentation we gave about the cross-connection, about, trying to get contaminated water into drinking water. It's the same concept there.
Have you checked on availability on those? Because I know where I'm at, somebody orders any size excavator, they're on a 3 to 4 year waiting list if you order
Yeah,
one right now.
we're expecting it to be a long wait, yes.
Wow.
But at the same time, we still, if it gets approved, we will still have to move forward and at least try to solve the problem. I mean, if it's a delay, then that's not under our control, we might have to just deal with it. Okay, manpower. So, remember I told you the package deal, I totally had rearranged this one, I think I had submitted the wrong one to Andy, but basically, what I'm requesting is a two crew members. So basically, they're gonna be maintaining the fire hydrants and also doing the manhole relining, because as it is, our crew is already stretched pretty thin trying to maintain the maintenance, and we have the 11th Street water project, and we're gonna try and do some of the Sherwood Forest projects. So we're starting to get more projects under, in our schedule, and try to maintain these emergency breaks. So trying to balance between trying to get those guys to do the manhole lining and do the fire hydrant maintenance, it's gonna be too much. So what I wanna do is request 2 crew members to specifically do that job. And of course, there'll still be emergency backups if we have someone go on vacation, somebody's sick, then they can cover somebody in the crew, but that's what these guys will be doing. They'll be doing the 80 manholes a year and maintaining the 400 plus fire hydrants we have throughout the city.
So you're saying you need 2 new employees, okay?
Yes.
Right.
And the 84,000 would be with fringe, because we also have to also have in consideration that we also pay for whenever they have their commercial license, their wastewater license. So those little added pays is what's included in that as well. Okay, grit chamber. So again, I'm not advertising this brand. I'm trying to show you basically the process, because when I took a tour of the wastewater plant, they showed me, okay, David, this is step 1. Okay, step 2 doesn't work, but step 3, 75% works. So this is step 4, and then step 5 isn't really a step 5, but we're using it as step 5. So when I took the tour, I said, man, that I seen a lot of inefficiencies in the plant, and what it relates to is that, again, as the people were complaining about water coming up from the manholes when it rains, of course, it's an I&I issue. That plays a big factor. But also what I'm finding out is that the wastewater isn't able to accept all that water because they're running inefficiently. So we're kind of have a double-edged sword where our manholes aren't relining, and our wastewater can't even handle any extra waste that we're bringing in. So basically, this grit chamber is a step 2 process that is not even being functioned right now. So I'll show you what it is. and we'll continue from there. You just get bad. Yeah, yeah, that's not
I
part,
was like,
that's not
what
the
is
video.
Text separates high-density grit particles from lower-density organics.
And we already have this process, it's not functioning.
Grit pump in the form of a slurry from the grit tank.
We have this, it's not functioning.
Blue arrow shows the windows where the conduits come in. They'll break these out, install bell ends, and glue the conduit inside the bell ends.
So we have that
Red arrow,
right now, it's just not functioning.
this is where the cable racking goes.
And,
And this is your cable
That's how we
racking
do it.
stand.
yeah, and I don't know who's speaking on that one, I think that's part of the video. Okay, so go to the next slide.
Here, we present the energy-saving Grid King separator, the first stage of an advanced grid management system.
Get down into the manhole, they'll stack
The grip-
these up on each other, and we'll see that.
Okay, there you go. Okay. We can put it in presentation mode again.
Sorry.
Presentation mode, right now it's, okay. So I wish I could tell you I took these pictures off the internet. These are what our grid chamber actually looks like, okay? So if you look at the picture in the right, has a missing gearbox and a missing motor, okay? And the pictures in the left are two pumps, okay? And if you're wondering why we only have two pumps on the list, it's because right now we're moving on the gearbox. We actually ordered the gearbox and getting a quote on the motor so we can actually get the paddle moving. The plumbing that we need to do, we're gonna do in-house. And in this request, I'm requesting to purchase two pumps, which are the left pictures. If we can go to the next slide, Gary. So it's $35,000 each pump, and we need two of them. So we already had that system in place, it's just not operable. One reason is because it doesn't have a motor, it doesn't have a gearbox, which is what we're working on. And the pumps, I have a feeling that if we turn those pumps on, they're just gonna blow a whole bunch of rust out and burn out. So that's what that request is, to put those pumps. TCQ has already made a visit, and they said we need to have that grid chamber running. Basically, they gave us a warning.
So this is something that we have to do because of TECQ. These
Correct.
pumps have to be on the agenda.
Correct.
Okay.
No, they didn't. Vanessa was trying to look at the paperwork to see what the timeline was, but she said it was a year or two ago, so we're pretty behind. Yeah.
So the cost of the two pumps is 70,000,
No,
is that?
yes.
So you said we're missing a gearbox and motor.
We already purchasing that.
Okay,
We've
we
already
already
moved
got
that.
that, okay.
That one, that amount was actually manageable, that I said, I'm not gonna put that in the presentation, we're gonna buy that now.
Okay,
So we're
good.
buying that now.
And we can install those ourselves? Or is
Yes.
that installed? Okay.
Yes, correct.
So in other words, to get this grit chamber working properly, again, all we need is those pumps.
Yes,
Plus a lot
correct.
of prayers.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm. And we do have to do some plumbing in between, but that stuff can be done in a day.
All right.
Hoist for the chlorine and sulfur dioxide tanks. So basically, that's our operation now. Everything's just manual. We just pull the chain, drop it off. So what I want to do is convert that into electric hoist. We go to the next slide. Here. To convert to electric hoist, so about $7,500 each. I did get with John Gomez, so he said they are compatible to run power through it. So that's one thing. It's more, I wouldn't call it a luxury. It's more try to make the life easier for the operators, because they have a lot to do. They have to deal with a plant that's inefficient. At the same time, when they get these tanks, they're just cranking them up and cranking them down. And I'd rather just then press a button, it'll be more of a safety issue as well. questions on that one? Easy one? Okay, so I love saying the story, so I'm going to say it. I know a lot of people have heard it before, but I enjoy saying it so much, I'm going to do it again. So Gary had sent me a request to take care of some dead palm trees, right? And he just, basically I just had to add in my to-do list because I had just started. I was already kind of drinking out of the fire hydrant, so as I'm trying to get settled, I basically put it on my to-do list. So we had a team meeting. I asked, it was Sid, Mickey, Marilu, and a couple other guys. They said, hey, they want us to remove these palm trees. I go, I don't want to do it in vain. Does anybody have any ideas? Maybe we can cut them like 4 feet tall, paint them as bollards, or do something. And Sid goes, he goes, what do we get one of those chainsaw wood sculptors? I said, do it. He goes, are you serious? I said, yes, do it. I want it done before Shrimpery. He's like, dude, you know Shrimpery's in 2 weeks, right? I said, I am 100% aware. Do it. So, man, he starts doing it, and Mickey got involved trying to find a chainsaw sculptor. John Gomez did. Like, everybody was into the idea. They were trying to help find somebody, so we ended up finding somebody for Port A, and sure enough, he finished, I think, a day before Shrimpery, and that was the outcome. So that was 100% Sid's idea, and he made it happen, so, you know, that's all to him.
They look
Good
great.
first step, yeah.
Yes.
So the name of this program, first step, is called Sculpting Innovative Designs.
Aw, Sid.
Yeah.
Aw.
So that's the name of the program. So we can go to the next one. So the cost is $150 per foot, and we're trying to do 6-foot sculptures, so we're $900 each. What I'm presenting is we pick 15 of those dead palm trees, and I was proposing that the mayor and council and select staff may pick a dead tree and a design. I mean, the design in his menu, I don't want to just make some random thing he couldn't make, but that is my proposal. So it'd be about $13,500 to do 15 sculptures. And of course, that could be negotiated. We can do 10, we can do 5, whatever the case is, but I would like to do at least 15.
Do we have that many dead palm trees?
Oh,
We have
yeah.
70
Oh, we
we
have
have
more than
73.
that. Oh, yeah.
That I do have an answer because we,
Kill the palm trees.
on purpose. So we have 73 dead palm trees.
Yeah.
We have what?
73.
Wow.
So public restructuring, this was actually supposed to be my first slide, but I mean, now it's basically the end of my thing. So if you look at the, do you guys have it in front of you, or you're looking through the screen?
We're
We're
looking at the
looking at
screen.
Okay,
screen.
I'm gonna go and pass so you can have it in front of you. So this is the current structure. If you don't mind passing it down. You guys have no copies?
He doesn't need one.
Yeah. So this is the current public works structure. When I first saw it on my second day here, and right off the bat, I'm like, it doesn't seem like it has any flow, but I just evaluated, I started, you know, I was gonna see how things went, right? So we started running into problems that I know we shouldn't have had, and I kept on relating to being structure, you know? I think the most recent example was, we're fixing the lights here on Wheeler, those 40-foot posts, and as John Gomez was going up, I said, I want to go up in one of them. I want to see what it's like to be up there. So took the bolts off, put it on. It was like 10 minutes worth of work to take it down. And I asked John, I said, dude, if it only took 10 minutes, why did you keep them in stock for 4 months? Like, because we had them in storage for 4 months before we did them. For a 10-minute job times 7, that's literally an hour and a half, 2 hours at the most. He told me, he goes, no, because I asked for help, but I know the guys are busy. You know, they have a lot of things to do, this and that. And so I started talking to Sid. I said, so if we needed to schedule 2 or 3 hours in the last 4 months, and we weren't able to find that time, is it really a time management issue? He goes, I mean, yeah, we're busy, but I think we could have found 2 or 3 hours in the last 4 months. I said, exactly, it's not a time management issue. It's a structural issue. Because now John has to ask for favors from a different department to help him out, and they might be busy at the moment, and then when they have time, they won't go up to John. You know, so there's a lot of miscommunication. Another issue is that when you see the wastewater and the wastewater plant, they're under two different bosses. So the wastewater plant and the wastewater guys that are feeding the plant should be under the same roof, not separate. And we're finding a lot of communication issues there, a lot of problems that we shouldn't even have. As a matter of fact, what I'm proposing is a restructure of the department, and then we could put a side by side.
Oh, you're right, but the other one is Tito, you're right.
Yes, correct. Yes, and that's why I'm bringing it up because when I showed the guys this restructure, they loved it so much that they said, even if the council doesn't want to give us a dime, we still want to do it. And I asked, well, why do you guys want to do it if you're not going to get paid for it? He said, because 90% of our problems would disappear on day one.
Oh, wow.
That's literally what they told me. So I feel really bad when they're saying, hey, no matter what the council says, let's do it. But me, I'm very fair, so I want to make sure we pay them accordingly, and that's why I'm bringing it to you, because I would like to make adjustments for a handful of guys. So if you look at the breakdown.
Again, council's not making a decision on that structure.
No, it's exactly. It's just, but I'm just trying to keep you in the loop. I'm trying to keep you informed of what we're going to do, and that way you can understand why I'm asking for the money. So it would move Sid to be an assistant public works director. Mickey Bonner will no longer be project manager. He will now be a public works maintenance superintendent, which will look over the street drainage and the mowing crew. Jeff Burkhead would be promoted to public works utility superintendent, which will watch over the wastewater and the wastewater plant. And John and Jerry will be under Sid. So now, whenever we have projects going on, now Sid would be held accountable on why we can't do projects. When before, hey, I'm asking for favors, I asked if they had help, this and that, and oh, we can't, we're busy. Now we're gonna have somebody accountable, be like, hey, why are these projects not getting done? And so Sid would be towards me, Marilu, planning at the time, I mean, might not be for long, and then of course the building department would be under me. But as I showed this plan to the guys, they were like, it doesn't matter if you pay us or not, we wanna do this. What I'm asking from you is to make it fair and approve to consider making the adjustments for them.
So about pay increase, okay.
And it'll just be a flat percentage to anybody. Nobody's getting a certain dollar amount more. It's just whatever the percentage is, everybody's gonna get the same percent. And then 6 months later, have you go to the next slide? Yeah, no, go to the next slide. So this one, it's actually, it says 45,000 there, but it's actually 60,000 because I forgot to include fringe when I submitted the 45,000. So of course, Social Security retirement also goes up as well, so that's what that extra amount is. But basically a percentage would be given up front, and 6 months later, I would evaluate the situation to see about getting them a second increase. So both increases are included in that dollar amount.
So did you just, I was writing, did you just say that it was 60, or did you give another amount?
No, 60.
It is 60.
Yeah, because the
Okay.
45 does not include fringe. That's
Okay.
strictly just pay.
Okay.
So decorative light post. So as we're looking at the street lights down Commercial, I believe, right? It's the main road. Okay, we have the brown poles that are getting old. A lot of them are rusted. They're very outdated. And the wiring, I got informed that the wiring is just not done correctly. They try to run a hot every other light to make two different series, but then they ran one neutral, which converts it back to one series. So in this project, we would have to rewire the project. We would have to do 2 different hots, 2 different neutrals, but we would actually have to add a third hot and a third neutral so we can actually light up the plugs right now as well, because right now the plugs are only hot when the lights are hot. So basically, when the lights turn on, then the plug works. We want those plugs to be on 24/7 with the lights on or off, so we have to make a third series for the plugs as well. So, these are just samples of light poles. Black is very nice looking, so that's those are an example of what they could look like. And the cost for the decorative light poles is about $105,000, but that includes the poles, the fixtures, the rewiring, and of course the the weatherproof receptacle provisions, which is basically a plug that we're gonna, right now the plugs are in the very top of the pole. We're gonna get the plugs in the bottom of the pole where they're a little bit more accessible. And that work would be done in-house. We would redo the wiring and we would install the poles ourselves.
And that's for how many poles, the 105,000?
I think it's 24, how many poles do we have? I think we have 24
Yeah, but
poles.
how many?
I think we have 24.
24?
Mhm.
Okay.
So this is just the cost for the material. We would install these ourselves. Road construction. We go to the next slide. So this is a 3-year improvement project. So everything highlighted here, if you kind of see that little tiny L shape right here, that's Bayside. So it's not Bayside the town, it's Bayside the street. I just want to make that clear. Which is a paper road. So on the next slide, you're going to see a 4-year plan because I have a partial 4-year that I want to continue. So I do want to keep a pattern. We do get the dollar amount approved to just, it won't, if we add it this year, it will not be in the wish next year because we're just going to try and maintain that dollar amount. Let me go to the next slide. So basically year 1, I'm asking for $250,000 for work that we're going to do ourselves. A lot of these are just overlays and rejuvenation. So year 1, I'm recommending we do Gillespie, Ransom, 10th Street, and then Bayside, which is the paper road. Then year 2, we'll do Beasley. Basically, Beasley is going to take up the whole $250,000. That'll be a 2-inch overlay. Then year 3, we'll do Gao, Greenwood, and Whispering Wind. Whispering Wind is another paper road. And then year 4, there's Young, but that's only part of the dollar amount is to be announced so that we can evaluate that year to see what other roads we can add to the list. Go next. Well, you know what? I think that's my last slide. Mhm.
Of those, I would say Ransom Road is the most heavily trafficked of all of those roads
Mhm.
and desperately needs to be done.
Yes.
But I think we need to,
If you go back to the next
we
slide before.
could involve the county with Ransom Road.
Because they'll do up to a mile.
Yeah, the Ransom Road is right here that goes from commercial to the wastewater. This one goes from
Right.
to the restaurant.
How long is that? Because the county says they'll do a mile a year for us. Whoop, whoop.
Well, that's under a mile. That's
Yeah.
probably.
And
So-
with,
That'd
and
be
with
like
the
a quarter mile.
navigation district having so much, the San Pat Navigation District taking up so much of that space, I think
Mhm.
that'd be a good collaboration. Let's
Yep.
bring in
Yeah,
the
that'd be
county.
good. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, no, they could do a portion that we can get that money and start second year a little sooner.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The county said they do a mile a year, and we supply the materials and they do the labor.
Correct,
Right.
correct.
Good to know.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
That it?
Wow.
Wow.
Well,
There you go.
bad thing and good thing.
No, that's good. These were all good.
These are-
You had a great
Yeah.
presentation, thank you.
Wish we had won the lottery. Wow.
Thank you
Yes.
for it.
Yes, yes. Love it.
If we were at PD right now, we're 15 minutes ahead, so I think we're scheduled for a short break right now. Is that correct? Is that correct?
Let's just keep going.
Do we need one, or let's just
Let's
keep
just
going
keep
if we don't
going.
need one?
Let's just keep
You
going.
hungry or what?
So we're talking about.
Yeah,
We're good.
yeah. This one was the new one, right?
Yes.
Be careful, Marvin.
This one was the old one.
Okay, I'll let you go.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Because the way that worked, we had one guy over 200 cars.
Right.
Him over 4 of them.
Right.
So you know, that's, I like that.
Yeah.
What he has found already.
I think it'll solve quite a little problems on that right here.
Well, they even agreed, I mean.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Yep. I agree.
Well, hello, Mayor and Council.
How you doing?
Happy anniversary.
Oh, thank you, I appreciate that. Yeah, I got thoroughly surprised after plenty of warnings of no surprises.
So, but anyway, thank you guys for giving us the opportunity to talk. Mine's not going to be too long. I'm coming back to you as a continuation in some aspects from the previous year, and a couple new projects or ideas for this next year. Go ahead. Right arrow. Oh, okay, well, sorry. So keep it simple. We're not public works. We're not that big with that much need. So I got three priorities, and one is a continuation of the salary and benefits. I did an internal survey to staff this about a month ago, and basically that survey was I wanted a report card on leadership and a report card on the department. So in other words, be critical of me and your supervisors. Tell me where we fall short. Tell me where our strengths are. And what are the number one issues facing the department? And I will tell you, most focused on the issues facing the department. And the number one complaint was salaries and benefits. And as you can see right here, and we will expand on this, though with the last increase that came this past year, we're still not competitive. My officers cannot afford insurance plans for their whole family. And I would venture to say that the entire city could not afford to insure their entire family because it's just far too expensive. And you guys probably feel the same. The quality of medical insurance out there is just quite subpar. So these are factors that go into whether or not officers want to come to the city of Aransas Pass. Do they want to stay at the city of Aransas Pass? And then on top of that is the burden of what we expect from our troops. That has always been a problem. For example, with dispatch, we have a high level of expectation that they must perform at, and they don't have to perform that level of expectation in other agencies, so it's made it difficult finding dispatchers. Next slide. So this is kind of looking around. Currently, this is kind of what the pay rate is and where we align. As you can see, Portland there just did a huge hike because they're about 4 officers short. They're trying to hire officers. In fact, we've hired 2 of their officers recently, and they took pay cuts, and we almost lost one because he now is struggling financially to stay with us. So they're at $26.44 an hour, and you can see Port Aransas, Ingleside, and Rockport. These are the starting rates. Port Aransas wanted me to know that none of their officers that they're hiring currently will be at the starting rate. Their market that they're hiring from is San Antonio or more north. They really don't want locals coming to their agency. They want to hire that skilled, experienced officer. And the further north you go in Texas, I hate to say the word, but the better supposedly policing practices are, or more progressive are those trends in those agencies. So that's why they're reaching that market. Moving along with this proposal this year, ideally, and I know we're going out for a pay study, and I think the pay study is going to support this and then some, we still wouldn't be the top paid agency in the area, which I think truly that our guys deserve that top position, but we're fine without it. We just want to be reasonable, and that's where it would take us. Still, we would be competitive in the area, and that's what we're striving for, is to be more competitive amongst the agencies around us in the field there. Again, pay study pending. The other thing that goes along with our priorities is staffing. We're looking at patrol right now. Patrol has adequate bodies, but because of the level of work and what is required of us at that level of work, we have 2 officers assigned to the schools and 1 assigned as a patrol detective. Why do we have a patrol detective? It's more of a clerical position mostly, but we also need that patrol detective to be responsive to calls because we're heavy on valued calls. So the patrol detective has to be an officer, he has to be a clerical officer, he has to take walk-ins and reports like that and do anything that may pop up that is cumbersome or in excess to the patrol responsibilities. This allows the patrol supervisor to be able to do more of his supervising role And he also shares that investigative process because there is just so much that is done. Over any given weekend, we could take in 20 to 30 events that require processing. And that processing takes a lot of time. There's a lot of paperwork. We sit in 3 different counties. Those 3 different counties all require things differently. And we have to be able to put those packages together and deliver them. Otherwise, if they don't get the package the way they want it, our residents, our victims suffer. So what I'm trying to do with staffing is to make up these 3 voids, the 2 SROs and the 1 patrol detective, and get 3 bodies to put back into patrol to fill those voids so that our response in the field still has adequate coverage as needed, and we're not burdened with the demoralization of some of the officers. That was a big factor. Is I'm overworked. Cops are often going on vacation. When they go on vacation, I have to work more now. I got to take calls in excess. I can either work overtime, I can work off duty to make the money that I'm not making just from the job. And so it all leads into finances and then staffing. Go ahead. 3 patrol officers, it's heavy, just like Public Works. It's going to be about a $209,000 expense. For some reason, that includes the fringe and everything, but it also includes the first responder stipend that the crime board funds. So you could take that first responder stipend out. That would reduce it by about $15,000 since the crime board funds that. What do we get out of it? Quality over quantity with calls. Hopefully we'll improve morale. We're going to definitely improve the response time when we have adequate staff assigned and able to respond. And the goal is to reduce overtime. Currently, you can see what we're sitting at on overtime. We've spent that much, $73,000. I've had city bosses tell me, well, overtime's avoidable. Just cancel it, deny it, don't do it. You can't do that. You have court, you have vacation, you have sick. There are so many. We have city events that are always coming up. The only way we can adequately respond to some of those events is with overtime. Go ahead. Code enforcement. As you know, we've got one stellar employee in code enforcement, and that's Corey, but we definitely need more in the police department. I'm not discounting Tito. They do work together, but they do kind of work on side assignments, sometimes working together, but most of the time they're working apart on different assignments. We would like to see if we could get another code enforcement officer at some point this year. I'm coming to you with that proposal. And the main goal is, next slide, I need your help to turn that frown upside down, council. Does that look like the face of a non-burned out employee? Not here to rush. Next slide. We always include Corey, if you remember last year. Got to throw him in there. Everybody loves Corey. And animal control. This is for a part-time position. I wanted to get you very good numbers, but I think there were some remaining issues with some of her numbers. Sandra. Okay, yeah, she was working on trying to correct some of those numbers. So we're going off of our best estimation, and then for a part-time animal control officer, this would basically help with the internal office clerical cleaning. It would allow us to do an after-hours on-call response that is more appropriate and requested from folks within the community, because right now our after-hours response is emergencies only. We regularly burn these employees out. The last one, I'm surprised she lasted so long. She lasted 4 years. Her last day is today. I have 2 brand new freshies, and we're going to be burning them out likely as well. So we need to try to get some coverage to help with that responsibility. And not only that, I'd love to say that we're a no-kill, 100% no-kill. We're not. There's no city that can be. It's just not possible. And having the burden of having to euthanize an animal, I couldn't do it. So that also plays on these employees. And just to come around full circle on that, we do everything we can to not put animals down. Shrimpery, we adopted out 10 or 11 animals. The nearest ones to us were 2, one in Portland and one in Corpus. Most of them went out of town. One of them went out of state. So we're very pleased at the response we get from Shrimpery, and we try to do that year-round. But there are those instances, even an injured or sick animal, you got to put them down. I can't do it. That's just, I could run after a bullet and put a person down that's shooting them, but I can't put an animal down. Public safety building. We've been talking about this since before I came here. They were talking about a public safety building. The crime board's been putting money away from it. We have a grant employee right now, and I'm trying to work very closely with her to see if there are funds out there and available. But we need to get a better facilities. We had outgrown this facility, I think, before they finished the construction of it. We were outgrown. We've outgrown the parking. A lot of back then, public safety facilities, this is a statewide issue, there was no planning that went into development of those facilities. Typically, you want to build them out for 20 to 30 years down the road. And I've toured facilities that have been built in that fashion. Ours was not. And I'm not faulting anybody for that. It's just there was no insight that went into that. We need space. We don't have the space. Right now, you'll go into the PD, you'll see Corey sharing a clerical or records desk up front. That's because there's no other space. And when the volunteer is working for the city, Corey's got nowhere to park his rear except in his truck. So it would be nice to work in that direction. Is this a realistic expectation coming from the council that I can ask you for? Probably not, but it is something we're going to work for with outside sources and funding, and it is one of the top goals that came out of working with my staff this year to establish some of these goals and ideas to come to council with. But, so, any questions? Any comments?
Do you have enough SRO officers right now to cover all the schools with everything, all the crazy stuff going on in the country? Because that's been one of my biggest deals in my head.
Yes, no, we don't. We don't. Ideally, I would love to have an SRO at every campus. I can't accommodate that right now. What I really wish would happen is potentially a partnership with the school to help with some of that funding.
I agree.
And I can't seem to get funding out of the school. Now, they have I don't know what their dynamics are. They have their own funding issues and stuff. But I can tell you when I started here, the school used to fund a huge part of crossing guards. That has since ended, and there is no funding. So we can't leave that void there. So that's why in our department, we've established to where every command staff employee has a campus they're assigned to, and they need to regularly be providing random services to those campuses. I don't know of any agencies around us that do that, but it is definitely something that I feel like we got to do everything we can within our means. So that's another responsibility that we share. I would love to have that.
Oh, same here.
Yeah. Now, I'll tell you the other thing is the relationship amongst law enforcement, public safety, and the kids has remarkably improved. I have kids that will chase me down wherever. I was at Strawberry Fest, and a kid came running up to me because he recognized me from Charlie Marshall. So I didn't recognize him, but he remembered me. And it's just create great relationships. We used to walk into the schools, Lynn Pierce told me, at Falk, and he would walk in at the beginning of the year, and you'd have kids crying at the sight of him because they see us on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And that changed.
Yep.
And so now these kids, they rejoice, they run up to you, they want to touch you and hug you and all that stuff. So it is recultured that out of the kids, the fear and the fright, because we're establishing greater relationships.
Oh, yeah, I see that with my two kids. They say the same thing because they see an officer. Because I know when I was going to school here, you never saw that.
You only see them during the bad times, and we got to change that.
That's right.
Great question. Anything else? No?
Are all of our schools hardened for entry?
Great question. That's better, I think, answered by the school. I don't want to speak too loud for them. I can tell you on the security board that we help them establish, we chair that board, fire, EMS, and all of us, and we regularly look at those things, and the school has taken into account, I would say 80% of the recommendations we've made from a public safety standpoint. Why not 100%? Because they would do it if they could. Is the funding and financial aspect is very difficult. For example, bulletproof doors and glass on exteriors. They can't do that. What do they have in place of that? They have bulletproof film that holds the glass intact. You can put holes through it, but you can't push through it. And, you know, with a lot of the studies on active threats, a locked door has been the best defense. In fact, I want to say that there was a statistic recently, up till recently, a year ago, that said none of the active threats ever breached a locked door and carried out a threat. So
Makes sense.
that's the basic premise of security, is at least locking the doors, and that is something we continually have to work with the school on, because teachers don't like letting the kids go to the bathroom, then their class being interrupted because they got to open the door, let the kid back in. They'll slide a little magnet thing to block the latch. Well, that's all it takes. Uvalde, the guy went in the first open door he could get into.
Yep.
So we got to continue to work on that. That, again, is a cultural thing. That's something we're so used to. And we got to get away from that. We got to change our mindset, unfortunately, and plan for the bad things.
Are officers back from Uvalde now?
Yes, all our staff are back from Uvalde. I have a Police Chiefs Association meeting this next week, and I've invited the Uvalde Police Chief and the command chief from Dilley to that meeting, and they're going to debrief with all the chiefs, about 29 members of our Police Chiefs Association this next week. We're going to debrief on everything.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate your support.
Thanks, you.
Couldn't do it without you.
Thank you. We couldn't do without you.
We have Henry.
I think Is the fire department
Fire.
gonna make a presentation and then Tri-County?
So I got about 205 slides and 25 minutes worth of film that we need to watch here, so we'll just get moving. Well, as always, I've really enjoyed this process from the years past, and I'm glad that we do this. It's really interesting even to hear from other budgets, other departments' budgets, and what they're needing. It's interesting to see how much that interweaves with the same stuff that you need as well. So. Yes, sir. Keep going. So the top three budget goals that we have for this year, of course, staffing, minimum pay raises, and we're looking for a cardiac defibrillator monitor. Go ahead, Mr. So I thought this was important. I usually show you all what equipment that we're operating every year. Since I've started, I've been able to get rid of several vehicles and not reduce the service that we provide. But the key to that is that takes that maintenance out. We're not putting $500 tires on a vehicle that we don't use, or we're not doing a pump maintenance on a truck that we're not using. So I thought that was important for you guys to see that. I put this slide in every year for you guys. Several of these slides are going to be ones that you've seen, but I think it's important to continue to keep this in our mind. We cannot continue to ask our fire departments to protect our communities with inadequate resources. We continue to see the number of injuries and fatalities of firefighters and civilians increase in future years until we get the staffing we need, not just one. The Aransas Pass has been short on staff for a long time. This is something that continues to come up, and it's been a recurring goal for me ever since I've come here. This year we're proposing to add 2 firefighters. This would add 1 firefighter per shift. Each shift would have a total of 5 firefighters, and this would be a continuation of what we've already started. So last year I got one guy, he's on B shift. That gave that shift 5. Now my other shifts are at 4, and I need to add their guys. And in addition, we want to add 1 firefighter every year after for the next 3 years. and that would get us to that 6. And I think that that's where this department would be the most comfortable and we can accomplish the most goals. So, wow, I can't see that. I don't know why it came out that way. That's weird. So, if you see, our fires have gone down. We have a great fire prevention program. I'm really happy with that. The total calls for 2019 was 779. For 2020, we actually dropped down a little bit of calls, but I guess because people were staying home, not moving around, that kind of stuff. That was 755. Last year, we saw 873 calls.
Wow.
That's a 12% increase in just those years. So we are seeing the calls. The guys are running. Let's go ahead. Since 2015, we've seen that 120%. We've more than doubled the amount of calls since 2015. Since 2015, we've seen a 335% increase in EMS calls. The guys are running about 2.5 calls a day. That's not usually how it comes in. It's usually one day they run 1 call, the next day they run 5. You know, and that could be anywhere from as soon as they get on shift all through the night. All these calls are handled by the on-shift crew, which is primarily 4 firefighters with a minimum of 3 firefighters when 1 firefighter's off. So what you're looking at every time they have a call, if someone's off that day, which I have 2 shifts right now at 3, you get 3 guys, and then we're waiting for help. Go ahead. In 2007, Chief Plumley was hired by the City of Aransas Pass to perform an assessment of the department. After the assessment, Chief Plumley submitted his findings to the city. APFD employed 3 firefighters per shift, and Chief Plumley's recommendation was to increase the number of career firefighters. Chief Plumley assists cities with recommendations for ISO ratings still today. That was a guy that was hired by the city to make recommendations for the fire department that since 2007 we're just barely getting trickled into. With fewer than 4 firefighters arrive on scene, the first company is faced with a critical decision. Does it initiate an interior attack without adequate staffing and unnecessarily risk firefighter safety? Or does it delay the interior fire attack until additional resources arrive, causing further fire damage? Neither response is appropriate. This is what our current shifts look like right now. So you have A shift and C shift are the ones that don't have the extra guy yet, and then B shift is the one that has the 5th guy. 2 shifts are only able to run 1 fully staffed engine, okay? So that means every call, the only thing you see go out is just the engine. Unless me and Nate are here, then we grab another truck. They are not capable of running a multi-company response without splitting the crew into 2 and 2, or sometimes 2 and 1. This practice is unsafe and does not follow any standards and is not in line with the SOPs that we have set out that are mandated by the state. During a call, these firefighters are not able to respond to simultaneous calls. Example, they can be on an EMS call, and then if a structure fire happens, they can't respond to the other. And we know the result of that. With the addition of more personnel, firefighters can be assigned to multiple trucks with little interruption to current strategies. So we've already started this on that shift that I have 5 guys on. I can assign 2 guys to run the squad unit. So those guys can go run and be on an EMS call, and I still have an engine company in service. Or say we had a very large fire, then those 5 guys can break into 2 different trucks. So instead of just having the engine, we're waiting for somebody to show up to grab the ladder, they can now roll both these trucks at the same time. And that would allow for that multi-company responses for fires and rescues. Also, by running that squad truck, I'm reducing the cost of what it costs for us to answer a call. So would you rather pay that money to run that big truck down the road for all these 335% more EMS calls that I'm running, or would it be better for me to take that pickup with 2 guys? You see, that reduces that cost. One of the important things, I haven't showed you guys this slide before. This is the fire propagation curve. From the time a fire starts, that curve starts rolling up. And the faster that curve is rolling up at the end, that's the most dangerous time for both occupants that may still be in the inn, or firefighters if they have to get there at that, on this slide is 12 minutes. That's when your fire is growing the biggest, okay? So that leads us to that flashover point, and I'm going to explain that a little bit more, but the key points for limiting that fire spreading, trying to keep it in the room of origin, which is how a building is built, try to keep fire in the room of origin, is to get quick arrival of the sufficient number of personnel. So we got to think of all the stuff that the guys got to do as soon as they get on scene. How long does that take them to do that? And their efficiency in making that happen. The quick arrival of equipment, so if I only show up with 1 truck, or if I show up with 2 trucks, and both are required to extinguish a fire as close to the point of origin as possible. So would we rather fight that fire right here in this corner, or do we want to have to fight this whole room fire? And that starts from that 0 to 12 minutes. Once you get to that 12 minutes, you're outside the room. Now we're talking about where we're going to stop it out here, see? Flashover occurs when all the items in a room are heated to the point that they begin to release flammable gases. When this occurs, the fire explodes into a huge fire. It's not survivable due to temperatures reaching approximately 1100 degrees. Firefighters will not generally survive a flashover, even with their protective clothing. If they're in there when this happens, it's bad. We got to get in soon. We got to get water on the fire as soon as we can and as efficiently as we can. Houses today, with the products that we have in our houses, the plastics and stuff, they burn hotter, faster, quicker, and we're behind the curve right now. In the first few moments of a structure fire, firefighters have to ensure the scene is safe and do I want to say, Carrie came out and watched us on a structure fire the other day. She saw all the things the guys had to do. Ensure the scene is safe and do a 360 walk around the building, rescue victims, put the truck in pump, establish a water source, which means dragging that hose all the way from the fire hydrant, extend their fire attack hoses, grab tools for forcible entry, apply water, set up ventilation and ladders, force entry into the building. This is all happening, and we're trying to keep it in that under 12 minutes. And I'm trying to do that with 3 guys. If you see at the top, that was and this is stuff that the fire departments have known for a long time. In 1982, Seattle Fire Department did basically a study on how efficient firefighters are. And they were trying to figure out how many firefighters should be on an engine crew. Now, of course, Seattle's got multiple stations, but how many guys should be on one engine? They found that an engine with only 3 people were only 45% effective. If you see, they went all the way to 6 people. They were 100% effective of getting all this done in an efficient manner to stop the fire. So if we were able to, if you guys were to help us move forward on getting new personnel, this is what it would look like. So you'd have 3 people on engine company, backed up by the 2 guys that are coming either in the ladder truck, the brush truck. Even brush fires are a big deal for us because you need people on that brush truck. Well, we're taking that away from our engine crew to make that happen. So now we've split those 2 guys off onto a brush truck, and you got an engine guy, the driver, on the engine by himself. And none of them, if we were working a brush fire, we can't respond to anything else. We're done. I wanted you to kind of see what the difference looked like just in the manpower between a 5-man crew and a 3-man crew. It's a lot more guys showing up. That's a lot more guys showing up. And then on top of all that, Chief Blanchard did bring this up My guys are also seeing that same burnout. When I got 3 guys on shift, I'm mandatorying them to come in on overtime. The guys are running call after call. And then on top of all that, we do these things. So, just because these guys have a fire doesn't mean, hey, these chores don't have to get done. This stuff is still important. Somebody's got to go get that quaddy out of the tree, You might know what a quaddy is?
Yes.
Next slide. There it is. That's a quaddy. The South American quaddy, also known as a ringtail quaddy, is a quaddy species and a member of the raccoon family. Just in case people didn't know what that
I
was.
had one of those run up on me one time. We were in Costa Rica at a restaurant. It was like I leaped to the next table on top of that poor guy's head. He'll probably never forget that.
Literally saved him out of the tree. He's alive today because of it. So in review, this was a recommendation from 2007 by a professional who was hired by the city. This will allow us to come closer to meeting the national and local standards of NFPA 1710. This will allow us to meet state mandates for the 2 in, 2 out. That's the state saying that we shall do that. And this would allow us to run simultaneous calls, and we would be able to run multi-companies to a single large-scale incident. Minimum pay increases. Surprise, surprise, right? Go ahead. Chief Blanchard has been on this subject now for a couple of years, and a lot of the things that he says, my guys see the same thing. My guys are seeing the exact same thing. And that includes providing enough pay for our staff to buy a home. They just can't do it. Since COVID, we have seen pay increases in industries such as McDonald's, where pay has increased to at least $15 an hour. Or let's take Buc-ee's, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is all they expect. Do you believe in what we believe? We believe our stores should be clean. We believe our staff should be friendly. We believe our prices should be low. If you believe what we believe, come join the Buc-ee's team, and we'll pay you $15 to $17 an hour to stand at a cash register.
Yep.
And that's 40 hours plus a week. They get health care, 401k, 3 weeks paid time off. They can use it, cash it, or roll it. We pay 20-year-old men to go into a fire for $13.50 an hour. That's what we pay. We've also discovered that we are beginning now to lose firefighters. Just like Chief Blanchard was saying, they see the money around us. I used Jake's picture very specifically. Jake was here for 5 years. He's local, grew up here, still lives here, and we lost him to Portland. I know that, and I've been told, well, we can't compare budgets to budgets. I get that. Guys ain't looking at budgets to budgets. They're looking at, how do I take care of my family? How do I feed my family? How do I buy a house for my family? We would like to retain these firefighters, which is much cheaper for me. I'm not buying new bunker gear every time I have to hire a guy. I'm not having to retrain this guy. I'm not putting in the hours and the time to keep this guy. I'd rather just do that one time and not have to do it every couple of years because I'm losing guys. This is what people around us are doing. Chief Blanchard brought up Portland. The fire department of Portland is now paying guys $55,000 a year. And that is, they'll pay you more if they know you got experience somewhere else. So like Jake, he didn't go over there and made their base salary. He went over there because he's got 5 years verified experience with us as a driver driver operator. Just some different numbers from around the area. Bernie's at 53. Reeves County is at 60,000. That's what they're starting firefighters at. Like I said, our firefighters start at $13.50 an hour. We're proposing to increase this to $16.50 an hour. We also propose to raise the base salary for our driver operator from $14.50 to $17.50, and for our captain from $16.50 to $19.50. We would also like to help Kelly out. Kelly's position originally started off, I don't know if y'all remember when I first brought it, as a part-time position. So with the pay that we chose for that at that time was a part-time pay. And Kelly definitely works more than part-time for us, and she does a lot of work for us. She's a huge asset to the fire department. I don't think it's that much of an increase for her. One thing that we already do, we have overtime for her, but she never really, that's not really an overtime thing for her. She doesn't work overtime. She works Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. So the money that basically we have sitting in an overtime budget is just sitting there. I'd rather use it to pay her what she deserves. Some of the things that Kelly does, she performs all of our general office and clerical duties, fulfills reports, requests from citizens, attorneys, and insurance companies. She does purchasing for me when I need her to. Helps me draft up RFPs and RFQs. She's really good at, she does all my proofreading and all that, so she's really great at that. And she helps me track the department budget. I mean, she's really on my budget. She became like the mother of us all, because she's like, well, let's look and see, and she knows what's going on. She stays on top of it. She prepares a lot of timesheets to submit to finance, drafts budget proposal. And the best thing is she just keeps me and Nate going where we're supposed to be going. It's crazy. Our schedules have gotten so crazy. The last thing I wanted to talk to you about is our Zoll cardiac defibrillator monitor. Currently, right now, we've just been using regular AEDs. The guys are really interested in moving. We've done a lot of advancement. Thank you to Dr. Blanchard, who's our emergency director. He has really allowed us to step forward and be progressive, same one that Carrie and them use. And so this defibrillator is really important to us because of that 335% increase in our medical calls. Pretty much everything that you're seeing right there is stuff that we would use this monitor for. Difficulty breathing, chest pain, unconscious, stroke, overdose. Other types, who knows what that is? Even traumatic calls, we would still use this. Currently what we're using right now is just an AED. We hook up the AED, it says shock or no shock, right? This one will actually allow us to do everything else we're doing manually. This all kind of brings it into one machine. So it allows us to see what the oxygen level is in someone's blood, their blood pressure, CO oximetry, and lets us record all that information. It'll actually let us record it so that we can pass that along to medics when they get on scene, who may then pass that along to the emergency room. It is compatible with what Tri-County uses, so when they show up, it's not pulling pads off. They can hook right into our pads. And it still functions as an AED. So if we need to shock at our level, we still can do that. So I always try to show you some of the stuff that we've done over the years, over the last year, things that the budget last year allowed us to do. One more. Lots of training, big fires. The guys have really worked hard this year. Does anybody have any questions?
Have we maintained our ISO rating?
We are maintaining it. I work really hard with them.
I know you do.
And it was important to me to like when we got the ladder truck, to make sure that if I get this and I let this engine go, will I still have enough credit to make it all happen? We're at the point now where we've gotten all the low-hanging fruit. What I'm concerned about, and if they change anything, which they pretty much do, that they'll say, yeah, it's manpower. And manpower was probably our most efficient that we want, because we have equipment that we don't have guys for.
Did you give us a cost on the new defibrillator?
It's 35,000.
Oh, 35. I missed that one, I'm sorry.
I think it was on there.
It was?
I don't, was
Oh.
it on there? I
Was
don't, I
it on
didn't see
there?
it.
I thought I
didn't
put
see
it on there.
Or I just missed it.
It's on my sheet, though.
Oh, okay, okay. Did you get your new equipment yet? Your suits?
It's coming. July 6th, I think, is the date that we're looking for. And the good thing about that equipment, we have been able to almost replace everything that's almost 5 years expired now.
That's
So
great.
we're really going to be in good shape after this one's run. To the point that I think that we're going to have enough left over that we can buy some rescue gear with it.
Awesome.
I have a question on the EMS calls. Do you, on that, do you go to, do both of y'all arrive, or how does that work? I'm just a
So
question from me.
with EMS, we're a first responder.
Okay.
So basically, we get there to assist EMS.
Okay.
What we've seen, I think that's been a great working relationship. We've done really good working through all that. When the call comes in, it gets dispatched to EMS, us, and PD. Because a lot of times we're in town, we arrive either before or right at the same time. But it's really important that, like if you had a cardiac or something like that,
Sure.
you need people there. There's a lot of things going at one time.
Right.
If you ever seen one of those happen, I mean, you got needles out, you got people doing blood pressure, people doing chest, people pumping, through the lungs. Now, what we have seen is where EMS has been overloaded. We're waiting for an ambulance coming from another area, which happens, say Port Aransas. Well, now we got this extended amount of time. We're the only ones there. So we're just maintaining, trying to stabilize, get all the information we can until that ambulance can show up. So if these guys are out on 2 cardiacs, let's say,
Sure.
or they're out on a cardiac and a trauma, then we're that first line of defense in stabilizing a patient until whoever's coming is coming.
Correct. Okay. And that's important. Very
It is. That was easy. That's
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you all.
Thanks,
you.
Chief.
Thanks.
I need a break.
I do too.
Me too. I need a break.
Yeah.
Can we just do a quick break?
Just sorry, we didn't mean to.
3.
morning.
All right.
Go ahead and start.
Yes, sure.
Sure. We don't have any money left, but go right ahead.
Well, that's the beautiful thing about this particular project.
Oh, good.
As I will mention in just a minute. We're looking at starting a couple of different things. The biggest one is a community paramedic program. Due to the increased call volume that everybody's been talking about here in public safety this morning, our call volume was up over 20% last year, and it's over another 10% year to date. People are calling 911 and using our services. Next slide. So a community paramedic is somebody who goes out to the community. He is a paramedic, he or she, should I say, and they can educate the public. They can provide resources to people, especially those in poverty. We have people calling 911 because they want COVID tests, or because they've been out of insulin for a week, or because they've missed their dialysis for 2 or 3 visits, which wreaks havoc on the body. Also, we have a lot of overdose calls, which have been drastically reduced since Chief Blanchard, they arrested a bunch of people, so it's been great. It's been great. Seriously, the overdose calls have really dropped off. So.
Oh, that's good. Good.
Yes, absolutely. So the programs are working, and what we're trying to do with this project is just to make it even better, and this project will do that. We had one yesterday. He was out of insulin for 4 days. He had no complaints, and he wanted to go to the hospital so he could get insulin, and he had a bag full of his medicines. Sir, where do you get your medicines? From the ER. So every time he needs a refill on his medication, they're calling 911 for an ambulance to take him to the ER. And I wish it was an isolated incident, but it's not. And that's why the ambulances are being pulled out of service to go treat these types of calls. So next slide. The community paramedic will actually help prevent these types of calls. And we can get referrals from the police department, from the fire department, from family and friends. They can call us and say, hey, we have somebody that would be good in your program, and we can help them. Next slide. So what'll happen is they'll get this referral. The paramedic, they'll go out there and they'll have a cardiac monitor, they'll have a computer, they'll have all of the necessary equipment, even suturing equipment. We can do sutures. Dr. Blanchard has been very progressive in our protocols, and we've talked about this program with him, and he likes the idea of it. And nobody else in this region has this program. We'd like to bring it to the region because it is the future of EMS. These are all the different things that a paramedic can do out there in the field. With mental health emergencies, which we have seen just explode since COVID started, and it's not going to get any better. They have 2 choices right now. Go to jail or go to the ER. This program will prevent both of those from happening. We can actually get them the mental health resources that they need. Next slide. All right, if the city chooses to fund this project, it does qualify under the American Rescue Plan funding, so it would be at no cost to the city if the funds are still available. And it will save the taxpayers money. Everybody loves that, right? It will save them hospital bills, it'll save them doctors' bills, ER visits, CAT scans, x-rays. They don't always need all those things, so this will save them money all the way around. Also, we'd like to add a 3rd call ambulance. As mentioned earlier, it's happened to where our units are not available because they're out on these types of calls. By having a 3rd call ambulance on peak days, it would be days of the week that the ambulance is most used, then it will relieve the burden on the police departments, the fire departments, and have extra services available to the citizens and visitors of the community.
What is the cost of that ambulance?
We already have the ambulance.
Oh, okay.
Yes, we actually just licensed our 4th ambulance this year, so we have 4 licensed ambulances. It's just a matter of staffing it. So staffing it right now on a part-time basis, and then in the future we will need it full-time, but we're not quite there yet. We are definitely growing, and we are getting there. That way we can have our ambulances available to our community instead of relying on other services that may not have the same training and experience that we have. This is just a graph that I made about the mutual aid calls that we've had to request over the years. Mutual aid is normal, it is expected, and we do help each other out. But there gets a point in the call volume where it is no longer mutual aid. We're depending on another service to provide the service that we should be providing to the citizens. So last year was 80 calls for mutual aid. This does not include the number of third calls that we used, or the number of calls that I responded to by myself and was able to take care of that person without having to call in another ambulance. This year we're already at 22 year to date, and we're not even heavy into our busy season. What we're asking is for $125,000 from the city. It will provide this service for a minimum of 2 years, and we're asking from other cities, the other cities that we provide to as well, because it will be, for all 3 cities. Yes, American Rescue Plan dollars, if there's still funding available from the city. Yes. So this is the team. We have already become community health workers, Esteban and I. We went through this program so we could have the knowledge to provide for the citizens. It's a licensure where you're certified to be able to, learn, about how to care for diabetes and chronic illnesses. And we are already certified in that. We would just need to get some more education on the community paramedic side of it, but it's a couple $1,000s, and it's included in the 125. So, any questions or concerns or comments?
On that American Rescue Plan, or the council's information, David's been looking at this, and Sandra has also. But we're just going out to bid on the portions of that, so we don't know that it's going to be a filter, but it's certainly possible. But we're not sure deep enough to know, to give an exact number at this point. But if that were to work out, that of course that keeps it away from our budget and allows us to go there, and it certainly would qualify, I believe, for the American Rescue Plan. Assuming the president doesn't pull this whole thing, but I don't think he will. But anyway, that's something we're working on until we have planned on.
Are any of these calls that you go out to for medications and stuff like that, are they veterans that are just not using veteran benefits by any chance?
Not that I've seen.
Okay.
It is people in poverty.
It's amazing that we don't have programs available to help those individuals, and yet we're giving it to everybody else that comes in.
Well, and there are programs available. We just need to educate the public, which is the purpose of this program, is to help give them that knowledge and the resources that they need. On September 1st, just as more information for you, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid have authorized ET3 funding for treatment and transport in place, meaning that this program, if approved, would have future funding to keep it rolling. This program is completely free to the taxpayers. We wouldn't be charging for this service. They would be getting it completely free from us.
That's good. September 1st?
Yes.
Speaking of educating the public, if there's anything that we could put out either on the PD page or the city page or your page that we could share and get out to the public, that's always useful.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
If you could give us up with a newsletter, if you could give us something.
No, yeah.
Flyer or something.
Sure. Yes, sir. There's one more slide.
No, okay.
Thank you for your support.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you, guys. Y'all have a great day.
You too.
Thank you.
Okay, Mayor and Council, next is, we're ahead of schedule right now, so we may need to get out early. So Ms. Mitchell is up next. You don't have one, do you?
No, it's just very short. Good morning, Mayor and council members. Mine is very short, 3 items, but the department heads have addressed the issue about wages. I only have 2 employees. My tenured employee has only been there about a year and a half. She has only been, she became a single parent, 5 kids recently, and is facing hard times. So she had to get a second job. So I think the consideration of increasing wages would be appreciated, because I would hate to lose her, being that wages are very competitive out there. She's a very intelligent young lady, and with a degree, and bilingual, and has a lot of experience. And so I pray that, she doesn't leave our court. So anyway, whatever y'all can consider would be appreciated.
May I ask, what is she making right now?
15. The 3 items that I'm requesting are, we have 2 attorney tables, and from what I understand, they were there when I first came on board. From what I understand, they've been there for over 10 or 15 years, and they are very wobbly, and we use them for trials. One is used for the defendant and their attorney, and the other one is used by the prosecutor. And they have knobs where you can tighten the legs, but they're so worn out that it's not doing any good. And so they're also used by the inmates to sign the magistration forms. And so, every time that they're trying to write, it's very hard to keep up with the wobbling. So I had them priced, and they come out to $926. We also are dealing with a laptop, and like Jeff was saying, they have a lifespan of 3 years, and they have been working with this laptop many times, and it works very slow, and that slows down our process when we have court. When I finish a case, we start working on their agreement, the paperwork, and we have the defendant sign right there and then. Just give them a copy, they make a payment, and I just move on to the other case while all of this is transpiring right there and then. And with the laptop working so slow, it just slows the process. The court clerk has to run to go into the office and interferes with whoever's in the office, answering the phone or dealing with someone at the window. And so it's just a mess. So I had IT check on prices, and they found one for $1,026.42. And the third one is door access, and Jeff talked about it earlier. I'm asking for 2 door access, and one is for this door, because y'all have meetings at different times, and sometimes we have a lock on the other side, but sometimes that door stays unlocked. And our records maintain juvenile information, and that's very, very fragile information, sensitive information, that we're liable for it. And while y'all are having your meetings, anybody can just go in there. And it's not just our safety, but a liability, because they can have access to records. So I would like to have a access control put there on this door. And then in our courtroom, Captain Jones is using what we would use as a jury room. He's using that as an office. And when we have court, we check people in, and we don't have security when we have court. And so people check in, and we send them to the courtroom, and anybody can go through that door and go into the police department. And so we don't have any control to that. And if he was to lock that door, that's our egress route to, in case of an active threat. So if he was to lock it and we have an active threat, we would not have a way to escape. So it would be easier for us to have an access control here and over there where the office connects to our court. And we have a quote of $12,000. We have money for court security, and we have $50,000 in that fund, and so we have access to that. So that would be able to cover it. So, you know, if we can go ahead and move forward, excuse me, with that.
So why haven't you used that money to do that, to do those locks? If there's money there. Yeah, Jeff is gonna answer that.
I'm sorry to butt in. One of the advantages of us doing this all at the same time is there's an advantage to bulk purchase.
Right.
So if we did these one-off, basically you're paying for them, the installers, to come down each time and do each door. And so we're trying to do this as a group to get some savings involved. These doors that she's talking about there are federal mandates from CJIS, which is Criminal Justice Information System, that we have an obligation to protect for data. A door lock will do that, but the access control will make it a little bit more automatic. You don't have to remember to lock the door, things like that. So, sorry.
So that lock money would come really out of your fund, not out of the city fund, because you have that money there.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, the $50,000, what else could you use it for?
I'm sorry?
The $50,000 that you say you have in that account, what else can you use it for? Can you use it to buy a new laptop? Can you use it to do, what is that $50,000 used for?
Just for court security.
Court security,
Mhm.
okay, that makes it a great, thank you.
Like court security, like if we need like scanners to
Right,
scan
I
the people.
understand. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So,
Thank you.
and then we used to have money in our technology fund, but.
Jeff is laughing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. With the court costs, they have like pots when they separate the court costs. And so right now we don't have enough money in the technology fund to cover the laptop.
Okay.
And her software comes out of that same fund, I believe, right? Is that correct?
I'm sorry?
Your software comes out of that same fund, right?
Yes.
The Tyler Technologies, which is very
These are the three items: the table, the tables, the laptop, and the doors access control are important to the court. The tables will give the people a sturdier piece of furniture that they can ride on or can be used during trials. The laptop will allow the court to work more effective and efficiently. The doors access will protect us and prevent anyone to have access to confidential information on juvenile records. So I ask y'all to please consider. Thank you.
We appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
I think we're ready for finance now. Most important part.
Seriously?
Girl, I got 5 minutes. Not even. Okay, so I cover the finance of the water utility department. So really and truly, what we are requesting for this year only is one truck. We have 4 trucks. We have one 2014, two 2015, and a 2019-year-old truck. We're wanting to replace the 2014 vehicle in our fleet. And the other one, is everybody, if you've already heard all morning long, is pay. You know, we typically give a COLA to employees of about 3%. The rate of inflation as of earlier this year was about 8.5%. So 3% doesn't even put a dent in the rate of inflation when it comes to that. So I'm suggesting that we do a COLA somewhere between 8 to 10% to at least get us close enough to where the rate of inflation is. Because honestly, our employees' buying power isn't what it used to be when we went ahead and gave all the raises at the beginning of the year. Okay, and that's really all I'm requesting for. See, very short and sweet.
Oh, that was
Perfect.
easy.
Thank you.
See, the shorter the presentation, ...
Okay, community enrichment. Uh-oh, it's not short.
Pages is Public Works.
I think she even has videos too.
It is short. Jeff said unless I got everything approved, I didn't have the bandwidth to go longer. So with that, good morning, Mayor and Council. Despite going over a couple of departments, I still think my presentation's relatively short. Currently, the community enrichment departments are as follows. They cover the Civic Center, the Aquatic Center, the Public Library, and we are offering senior services under this department as well. Taking a look at the Aquatic Center and the Civic Center, comparing 2021 to what we're projecting for 2022, one of my main goals is trying to reduce, almost to close, the gap of where these departments have historically needed outside funding to close between expenditures and revenue. And so the yellow line in the center is that gap, ostensibly. I'm sorry, excuse me. I labeled them backwards. My apologies. The blue line is our revenue, the yellow is the gap, and the green, of course, is the expenditures. So this year, we have seen our revenue really climb in both of those departments, and so therefore our gap is closing for this year, what we're projecting. Next slide, please. The goals, or what we are requesting from you guys this year for each of those areas. The Civic Center, we're requesting a marketing person be hired. When I evaluated the needs for that department specifically, a marketing person, someone who specifically could focus on marketing, I felt would be highly beneficial to the department, because of the marketing that I've been able to put into place this year has been tremendously successful. However, I still do have a lot of other things that I have to take care of, so that hasn't been able to be 100% of my focus. So I think someone with a much more designated focus there could only be that much more successful. But I would like that role to strongly be tailored, not exclusively for the Civic Center, because the Community Enrichment Department covers all of those entities that we talked about. I would like that person to be able to facilitate marketing across the board for those. I think that's a much better use of those dollars. I also would like to hire someone who has experience in grant writing and sponsorship procurement. This department does a lot for community growth, development, investment, and there's a lot of local, state, and federal funding for all of those items, but they do take time. And so that is something that having somebody there who can specifically focus on that would be successful in acquiring. We also do need to replace an AC in the building. It is the last one kind of hanging over that needed a total replacement from Hurricane Harvey. It is over our main guest restrooms. And if you have been in the Civic Center recently for any events, you'll know it's a little bit warm in there. But unfortunately, AC replacements are not cheap. That's coming in at about $15,000 just from the rough estimates I've been able to get so far. This next item, as you know, we have a marquee board that's outside the center right now. It was purchased roughly through hotel tax, which does kind of limit our ability to control what we display from that board. And while we're very grateful for its presence, there's a lot more that I think we could do with that piece of equipment. If you'll notice right now, there are some lights missing. Just to replace those 17 lights, it's going to cost us almost $2,000. To replace the boards behind them, the quote came in at about $4,300. Doing a very quick research online, I was able to identify that we could get a more new, more efficient model, something that's colored and could be front and back for somewhere around $3,000 to $5,000. And while I have this on our presentation, this is something that the MDD board is also considering covering funding for, should I be able to verify that it's within their scope to pay for as a building improvement and not a maintenance item. And then lastly, with your approval to hire on our marketing and grants person, they would need a digital workstation. So basically a computer and the software that would go with that. At the Aquatic Center, this year we had our inspection and we passed everything with flying colors. Our state inspector did let us know that while everything looked great for this season, he would like our steel replaced on our platform before he comes back and inspects next year. That can be quite pricey. That's expected to be about $25,000. We would also like to repaint the restrooms, the walls and the floors for something that's a little more water resistant and help to contain the slope of the water in there a little better. And another item is to repair the water boiler, and that one we're estimating about $10,000 to $12,000. At the library, they also have an exterior AC component that needs replacing. Lil, as you know, does phenomenally well with that budget over there. She was able to reappropriate some of her funds out of her capital outlay into this, should it be approved, to kind of offset the cost for that. She's also adding an online subscription that she's requesting over there. And then the last item, I have a star next to this one because in and of itself it's a request. Currently, while we're offering senior services, and that would take this fourth bullet point, what I'd like to do is fold that into a Parks and Recs department. Parks and Recs, what we would need to just basically launch that after a lot of talk with David and Gary, if we were able to follow this design and hire a Parks and Recs manager and a program coordinator, we believe it could be quite successful in launching a really successful Parks and Recs program. So with your approval again, should we bring on those two roles, they would also need their workstations. And then a couple of projects that we would like to get started under programs to kick off that department. Next slide, please.
Yeah, and you may want to point out that in our discussions, mowing would be staying with public works.
Thank you. Sorry. Yes, while we looked at this model for how could we bring about a Parks and Recs department, we initially had talked about what would go into maintaining the parks facilities throughout the city, and it was agreed upon that David and his department would continue to maintain the park facilities. So basically that's mowing, those sorts of things. And what we would be creating under community enrichment is the programs themselves. So the leagues, the tournaments, the youth and senior programs, those types of things. And that's kind of why those would fall under community enrichment, because they have so much of a marketing and events, that kind of a nature to them. And so briefly what we talked about in the previous slide, this is what it would kind of look like should we implement what we're requesting. Right now we do have a maintenance and facilities technician. That person does service all of our departments currently and has done a fantastic job of cutting back what we've had to pay in those outside contractors and keep the properties running a little bit smoother. What we would do, of course, if we hired the marketing and grants manager, officing out of the Civic Center, they would still be servicing all the other departments. And then Parks and Recs, again, we would just be bringing on those 2 roles. So, to put those into actions, our first action item with your approval would be to hire our Parks and Recs manager, and then our marketing and grants manager. Once our Parks and Recs person would be boots on the ground, and we'd be able to kind of put our head together and iron out the schedule and the programs and our goals. Then our marketing person can kind of take those and give them wings, procure the grants and sponsorships that could help us with those programs, those types of things. And then lastly, those would prepare us for 2023. And then I just wrote, Parks and Rec programs offer communities access to enriching activities such as sports and team building, and they encourage wellness through physical activity and healthy living. Next slide, please. Again, as we discussed, our marketing and grants manager would support all the departments in general advertising and acquisition of grants. So some of those items later on that we may talk about are programs and the costs that they may entail. This person could help offset a lot of that. So the programs that immediately do come with a price tag or would come with a price tag would be launching a youth football team, youth/adult soccer team, our senior programs and events, and our community gardens. By investing in these programs, we'd be able to offer meaningful programs throughout the year, such as camps, leagues, tournaments, and events. Offering regular senior programming events gives our community opportunities for engagement and activities. It also allows us to offer programs to seasonal guests, such as our Winter Texan demographic. And many of these programs may be eligible for grant and community funding. These funds would be secured by our marketing and grants manager. We've seen a lot of interest in our senior programs, not only offering information to the community, but also offering a way for our senior community to be out of the house and find camaraderie and networking, if you will, which is a very important element for folks at that stage. And so investing in this helps us bring that enrichment to the community. And I do have those numbers listed on the board, on the papers below you, but I can go over them quickly if you would like.
Before you do that, where are they going to play soccer?
What we would do is have a net that could be collapsed and set back up. I know right now they have, if you go out in the evening, there's families practicing soccer and whatnot. Just, is it south of where we have the shrimpery grounds? It's on Johnson Street. There's that empty field right there, which would be enough space to practice.
Because I think they used to play in what was called the shrimpery grounds. There used to be a league that was there.
Okay, yes, that may be the same location.
Right? In a while.
Yeah, the actual shrimpery grounds actually had, there was 2, 4, 5, 6, 7 soccer fields on it.
Wow.
And right now you can actually still put those soccer fields back up.
Wow, that's incredible. There's a lot of space in the community park area. There's so much space and there's so much potential, and I really believe that next year we will capitalize on that a lot.
Actually, that's what the lights were for the soccer fields.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I'm glad they're there. So the other items that we talked about earlier on, I titled this Investing in the Product. I know throughout the morning you've heard some folks express concerns, very valid concerns. We do not know what the future of our local, state, or national economy is going to look like. That's 100% credible. What we do know is if we have a picture of what we would like our future to look like, what we have to do is continue to invest in it and take that chance sometimes and say, I might not know what's coming tomorrow, but I know what's here today, and I know what I'd like it to look like, and I'm willing to take that chance. So I think that, what these departments offer right now, what they have grown in the last 6 months, and where they will grow in the next 12 months, 18 months, is definitely something worth investing in. So thank you for your time. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Okay, thank you, Carolyn. That
Great
was
presentation.
nice.
Thank you.
And if one or two of those don't get accepted, I might need that $25,000 back.
Mayor and Council, I think that's it.
Okay.
We finished well ahead of time.
It's now up to you, and just want to emphasize, every year, we take this information, it's going to be compiled, and we can send it out, and Andy's going to be compiling it, send it out so you see what the final product is, but we use this. And as Sandra knows, and as Vicki knows, last year and in previous years, your input that's played a big part in the budget, a lot of it because of your recommendations. So that's what we're up to next, and then we're finished at that point. Want to recognize, putting this all together, two people who don't like recognition, and that's Mary and Andy, and they put all this together. And did an excellent job, so appreciate it greatly. Absolutely. So now it's up to you. We need your input, and we'll take this to the budget meetings. So very good.
Can I have more?
No, I need more dots.
Can I have more?
Yeah, we need more.
More dots?
More dots?
You can't get 5 dots.
We need
That's what we do every year.
Yes, you can.
You can,
Yeah.
just don't propagandize.
Put it this way,
Yeah,
if
no
the
problem.
number goes off,
We
we're
could
taking-
give, do we have additional, we can give you one more set of
Oh,
dots.
good.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be good.
10
No,
more,
no, just the one more. So they
Just
have
one more
six.
dot?
10 more sets?
One dot.
If I have some scissors, I can cut these in quarters.
Or an hour.
And half.
We're gonna give you another.